Airfix. Airfix have recently announced that they're introducing a new Spitfire to their plastic model kit range. Join me in this video as I take a quick look at their announcement and also discuss the all-important questions. Do we need another Spitfire in 1/72nd scale? Hi, I'm Matt and you're watching Model Minutes. So today I'm taking a quick look at the new Spitfire MkVc in 1/72nd scale from Airfix, and it has been announced on the Airfix Workbench website, and it was alluded to in their launch release 2020 catalogue range on their website back in January. Firstly, do we need another Spitfire? I mean, I've built on my channel already a Spitfire Mark 1, another Spitfire Mark 1, a Spitfire Mark 1 in German colours. I've got a part built Spitfire Mark 6 somewhere. I've done a Spitfire Mark 2 in 148. I've done a Spitfire Mark 14 in 148 as well. And in my stash, I've got Spitfire, Spitfire Mark 5, Mark 5A, Mark 5B, another Mark 5B. You see where I'm going with this. Now, the Airfix range would not be complete without a Spitfire in it, but over the years they've had a number of different ones. My question though is, newly tooled Spitfire Mark 5, is it really something that we need? Well, let's take a look together at their first 3D rendered images and see what they're like. So the first image we're going to take a look at is the entire aircraft, and you can see it looks all right. It looks quite nice. It's got the cockpit canopy positioned open, and I think the only real difference between a 5B and a 5C is that it has different armament in the wings. You'll also notice that on this one it's got a tropical filter under the nose for use in desert type conditions. It helps filter out sand and other things that are in the air, which could ultimately damage the engine and affect the performance of the aircraft. So as we progress through the article, there are more 3D images of the various components which are going to be part of the model, and you can see that it's got recessed panel lines, and to be honest, it looks very similar to the earlier Mark 1 kit. And I'm sure it probably takes a lot of inspiration from that version. So as we progress through the information there, the designer tells us that he's had particular trouble in different areas, the wing fillets for example, and he also implies that he wants to get as much detail as he can inside the aircraft. So there's a nice image of the cockpit interior there, and if I'm honest, yes, there does seem to be more detail than on the earlier Spitfire Mark 1 that they introduced to the range, and it seems as if they've taken inspiration from the larger scale kits and just compressed it into something smaller, which in 1/72nd scale isn't a bad thing. That's quite good. We keep on going down the article and you can see how the gun barrels are added to the wings. The Spitfire Mark 5C has 4 20mm cannons compared to the Mark 5B, which had 2 20mm cannons and 4 .303-inch Browning machine guns, which compared to the Mark 5A had the same armament as the Mark 1A, which was 8 .303-inch machine guns in the wings. Other than this though, I'm not entirely sure there's that much difference from a Mark 5C and a Mark 5B. So perhaps they've done something here where they can use this tooling as an updated Mark 5B. Because this one that I've got is quite old, and I haven't seen it actually in the shops recently, and as far as I'm aware this might actually be the most recent boxed version, and this is from a time before Airfix was taken over by Hornby. Towards the end of the article, the designer says that he tried to incorporate a different style of adding the prop to the nose. What he thinks is easier, and I agree with him, is to close up the fuselage and then add the nose and the propeller afterwards. But it makes it sound in the article that this is a completely new, fresh idea that's never been done before, and if I'm brutally honest, it has, because the other kits that are more recently tooled, I think like the Defiant for example, and some of the larger scale kits, they have a very similar method whereby you you build up your propeller and it just slots into the nacelle or the engine area after you've built everything else, so you don't have to add it as you're building it. And I get why, you know, it's difficult because you want to paint those areas and then add that as a separate detail afterwards, but it's not completely brand new and they're making it out like it actually is. After that, you keep going down and it shows you some more images of the different assembly of the different components that are going together in the model, and it looks like it will go together really well. It doesn't look too different from the earlier Spitfire Mark 1 in the manner that it's assembled. It seems to follow a very similar pattern. It does show in places that the second cannon on the outside of the wing can have a blanking plug installed, but it doesn't inherently look as though it could represent a Mark 5B. I don't know exactly the differences. There might be more internal differences between a Mark 5B and a Mark 5C, but I'm not entirely sure what they are. So if you know, make sure you put it down in the comments. And it seems to me that this thing is going to retail for about £10. I think you can pre-order them already. As lovely as it looks, and I'm sure that there are people out there who desperately want a Mark 5C, is it something that we desperately need? I'm sure that other manufacturers actually do have Mark 5Cs in the range, so 1/72 scale isn't exactly lacking in Spitfire model kits. You could say that the plastic scale model scene is almost oversaturated by Spitfires. Perhaps their time would have been better invested in a more interesting aircraft. Maybe something a little bit more obscure, something out of the ordinary. I mean, there's loads of them to pick from. So ultimately, in conclusion, Airfix have decided to manufacture and design a new Spitfire Mark 5C, which is going to retail for about £10. And yes, it does look quite good for the scale that they're doing it for. But I have my doubts as to whether I need one, because there are so many Spitfires already in production in 1/72 scale. But I think the saddest thing is that I'm probably going to end up buying one, aren't I? And with that, that's the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Is this something that we desperately need, or is it just sort of rehashing an old theme? As always, honourable mention to my patrons over on Patreon. Massive thank you to you for the support that you give me. And if you'd like to find out more about what becoming a patron means and the perks it gets you, take a look at the link in the description. As always, don't forget that you can get into contact with me and follow my builds on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and Discord. And all that's left to say is I'll see you all on the Workbench again next time. This box is so big, it's ridiculous. It's like just huge. Thank you.